Imagine what it would be like to wake up and not have power in your home, not be able to communicate with somebody on a cell phone. People are taking advantage of no power for crime. If we don't have electricity, our way of life is in immediate danger, and it doesn't take a lot for that to happen.
There's some people out there that just are looking to prove a point, and there are vulnerabilities. There are things that you have to look at seriously.
Recent events in our area just brought home the fact that there are adversaries out there who do want to do damage to our infrastructure.
Critical infrastructure protection is a big piece of what we're looking at. It's becoming more and more prevalent in today's society as to how do we protect those pieces that are unacceptable to lose.
This is an opportunity for all of us to get better. And quite frankly, I think we're in a time period where we have to get better.
Safeguards 3 is a security advisory and consulting company. We have the ability to provide knowledge, tools, methodologies that can help organizations evaluate what their current physical security looks like and where they have areas of vulnerability.
My first career was with U.S. Army Special Forces. Looking at attacking critical infrastructure and critical assets, it's kind of what we did. And then I switched over and I retired and I started working for the DOE complex, protecting assets. And these were our nuclear assets, and training a lot of our protective force personnel to guard and respond to those incidents at the sites.
So the VISA tool is, I think, is a great program. They bring in experts in security and provide, as a utility, us the opportunity to sit down with partners within our community.
VISA stands for Vulnerability of Integrated Security Analysis. It gives a very structured way to look at your system.
The VISA tool and methodology is a methodical process of taking a given threat and applying that against one of your high consequence assets, and look at each layer of your physical security system and make a determination of how it's going to mitigate or respond to that threat.
I think you could take this concept and extrapolate it to any risk. So absolutely any risk that you have within your community, whether that is from a school setting, your water and your wastewater treatments can also be that's part of your critical infrastructure. Even assessing it using this tool for an upcoming festival or some large community event. It's the process of stepping it through in a methodical approach that gives you the advantage.
I began to think, what other critical infrastructure could we apply this to? And I started thinking about hospitals. I started thinking about schools. I started thinking about other utilities to include gas, water, other things that cannot fail. And so what can we do, and how can we leverage this tool and apply it in those situations?
We have worked this workshop with both small, medium, and large utilities, and they have all benefited. Small utilities where they don't have a security department, and they really don't have a security program. Utilities where they spend millions and millions of dollars on their physical security and response. We have used this in schools to help them make informed, risk-based decisions on what they're going to do to protect the students and staff at the schools. You can use it on many, many, many things. It works, and it's a high-impact workshop that we deliver. Day one, we sort out some very fundamental information that will help us in the analysis. Like, what are the unacceptable consequences? Things they just can't let happen at all.
There's a design basis threat, which is a set of plausible situations or conditions, different kinds of people and their tools that could harm a substation or any other infrastructure.
And it's informed by a lot of historical incidents, police information, national intelligence, regional information, all the incidents that have happened in your area. And what it does, it describes the characteristics and attributes of the boogeyman. It's basically, this is what the boogeyman looks like. From weapons, tools, equipment, training, knowledge, tactics. This is fundamental to any vulnerability analysis. You have to be able to determine what you're protecting against. And then you can design a system to protect against that. It includes both outsider characteristics and attributes, and it describes the insider threat that you are expected to protect against. Now, the worst case of the DBT is an insider colluding with an outsider. And we work through all of those scenarios on the workshop. Next, we sort out the response force timeline. And this is what is beneficial because we do have a law enforcement officer in the room helping us sort that information out. One of the unwritten benefits of this course is that we bring in an integrated team for the analysis.
We had the local police department, we had the local sheriff's department, we had the emergency management people that were there.
We bring in everybody, well, we recommend bringing in everybody from operations to maintenance to HR, engineers.
It gave a reason and a purpose for different people that normally wouldn't be in the same room together to have a discussion around, in this case, substation security.
It was great to have everybody that had a piece of it in the room.
Having physical security practitioners in the room and also having cyber security practitioners in the room. Sometimes they don't speak the same language, but by the end of the course, doing an analysis using the VISA tool and the methodology, everybody's on the same page and they're fighting one fight.
Certainly, I think the highest value for us when we went through the training is developing that understanding on what our response would be as a utility, what we can expect from other agencies that may also need to respond in an emergency event.
One of the biggest things we bring in is law enforcement, like I mentioned before, because that's the piece that people tend to miss.
I had an idea of what, for example, the police would do if there was an event. And having police in the room telling us what they would actually do really clarified that we didn't have any idea what police would do.
Having the police in the room finishes that up, where you really can work across the 4 functional areas in your analysis.
We went to a specific substation site that was selected as our most critical location to determine all of the possible attacks that could happen. What would be the worst case targets? What's the worst thing that could happen at that substation?
That way everybody, when we're talking about different parts of the site and different equipment, we all know what we're talking about.
We walk through it, we look at all of the different layers of physical protection that are at that asset. So everybody's working off of the same fundamental page.
We did 3 different scenarios where we did an insider-only threat, an outsider-only threat, and then an insider colluding with an outsider. And we came up with worst-case scenarios for each of those, and then figured out how we could mitigate each of those risks once we came up with the scenario.
You're bringing in fresh eyes that are looking at things really in a different lens than what we would look at from a utility standpoint.
A lot of people think, oh, I should only be worried about this specific type of attack. But when you look at it from all of these different angles, you figure out different ways that you should be considering how you should protect your critical assets.
Some of the information that I didn't think about as an emergency manager, which was the insider threat mitigation. That was huge for me. That was an eye-opener that this is the gap.
We have a high level of trust in our employees. We have highly skilled employees within our organization. But there are points where, you know, you look at it, and it's not that you lack trust in employees, but it's when you go through these scenarios, you see that maybe you don't have the checks and balances in place necessarily. We thought that we had all that covered, and then you get in a situation where it's like, oh, that might be something we want to take a look at and improve on.
There is a validation. You know, is this scenario valid? It has to meet several criteria. Is this scenario reasonable and credible? Does it stay within the design basis threat? Does it stay within the characteristics and attributes of the adversary, both the insiders and outsiders that's described in the design basis threat or the DBT? And finally, and probably most importantly, does it achieve one or more of those unacceptable consequences that the risk managers say that this just can't happen? Once it's a valid scenario, we run it. When we do the analysis, each layer of the physical security system, you make an assessment. What is the probability of the system, the physical security system, detecting the adversary at that point?
And that could be something as simple as a motion detector outside of your fence, things of that nature, so that somewhere along the line, we're picking up something in the security timeline that tells us something is out of the ordinary.
And then also giving you enough information to give you an accurate assessment that it's a threat.
And based on that, the level of information coming through in the detection phase and the accuracy of the assessment, that's where it's vital to start the response. It's critical to incorporate into your security layers of defense that will buy you that time to when your response force can get there. And then more importantly, when your response force can neutralize the attack.
Once we run it, the base case, as we call it, is finished, then we have the upgrade discussion. There's always weaknesses and vulnerabilities that we've exploited, and there's upgrades. And these upgrades are across the full spectrum of, you know, detection, assessment, delay, and response. And it can involve people, procedures, and equipment across those four functional areas.
It can range from something very simple as upgrading the locks on the gates or adding anti-ramming capabilities in front of the gates to something significantly more complex. You know, you can have an off-site video monitoring system that's monitoring 24/7.
It's not always about having expensive technology. Even just procedural changes, the way we do business, the way access is granted.
It can be something as simple as a policy to understand what it would look like if somebody was trying to collude with you or trying to kind of recruit maybe an unwitting employee that maybe has a lot of information, doesn't realize that someone's trying to get that information from them. They can take that information and then they can feed it to outsiders that are maybe more extremists, that simply just want to cause damage.
We don't look for one single thing that we can hang our hat on that stops the threat. We like to have a balanced approach, an integrated approach to our upgrades.
Then we go through the process again of analyzing a scenario with those measures in place to see if we could stop the threat.
I've had scenarios where we've done an upgrade case and we've tried out a range of upgrades and they did not mitigate the threat. So the beauty of this tool is you can do a second or a third upgrade case as you work through the upgrades that you're considering, and you will eventually mitigate the threat.
We learned that there's a lot of different ways to mitigate a threat. And not only that, but we can find out what wouldn't work. It very quickly can focus our attention on what efficient use of money can do for us, and really helps us to be confident that the money that is spent in this way will actually do what we want it to do.
There are a lot of ways to spend money and improve security, but there are also a lot of ways that you don't have to spend a lot of money. There are things that you can enhance your security that you can do within say a 30-day period that are going to make things better.
Those kind of things that don't cost hardly anything, yet have a big impact on preventing some of these plausible scenarios, was very eye-opening to me.
The VA team, the Vulnerability Assessment Team, that is working with this tool and this methodology, will present their findings and their justifications for, security upgrades.
We'll have documentation that shows these are our risks. It's based on actual data. Here's how we can mitigate those. Here's our thinking. It's all documented through this tool.
Here's our justification, here's our analysis. Now you get to make the decision. And it is. The risk manager is now able to make an informed, risk-based decision on security upgrades.
It's really that balance of the risk reward. How much money do we want to invest in protecting these critical assets versus how much risk are we willing to accept? That's the purpose of the VISA workshop.
As a risk manager, I'd like to know where I can spend my money to buy down risk, and then where I have to accept risk. Our security upgrade dollars are tight, and making an informed risk-based decision like that is important.
This workshop was facilitated by people who have a lot of experience. They were excellent facilitators because even with all that knowledge, they let our company employees develop the scenarios, develop the strategies, and really allowed us to grow our capabilities. So it wasn't just them coming in and telling us what we ought to do, but within a 1 week time, they've taught us how to do it ourselves.
Remember, the goal of the course is to teach them the tool and the methodology. We would hope, of course, that they use the tool and the methodology right away.
We have the momentum now, we have the right people involved in the team, and we have to keep that momentum going and actually apply it so that we can protect our infrastructure.
We're going to go from here and be equipped to assess not only the site that we picked for this workshop, but any of our sites, and come up with measures that we can get budget for, because we've got data, we've got real, plausible, reasonable scenarios and mitigation measures that we know will work.
After that training was complete, we left as friends, as people that if you have a question, you feel comfortable reaching out and saying, hey, can you come with me and take a look at this because I've got a couple of questions based on the training we've gone through.
We have seen changes in police response procedure and protocol because of the relationship that's developed in this workshop, because they're working hand in hand to solve a problem at one of their high consequence assets.
I would say going into this training, we had a positive relationship already with a lot of these agencies. It just enhanced and improved that communication that was taking place now.
This is my favorite workshop I've ever attended, and I did thank the instructors multiple times for not doing a PowerPoint death.
The active engagement with the trainers and the assessment tool and the participants in the audience, the participants in the room, was invaluable. It's not something that you can get from a virtual environment. It's not something that you can get from reading a manual.
I would encourage anybody, any engineer or operations person particularly, but other people as well, police, emergency management folks, fire, be willing to sit together in a workshop and have discussions about security.
If you have a need to review your security systems, if you're interested in a VISA workshop, contact us.
Take the time to go through the training. Take the time to do the evaluation on your facilities. It's not something that you're going to go, oh my goodness, I'm going to look bad. because maybe there are deficiencies. I just don't want people to know those deficiencies. This is an opportunity for all of us to get better. I think in the industry right now, that's what we all should be striving for, is that continuous improvement, that opportunity to get better at what we do.
If you have the opportunity to take this training, I would highly recommend it.